I'm blown away by Zach Wilson. I feel like I'm back watching almost a Patrick Mahomes again. That's how I feel when I'm watching him.
Zach Wilson is clearly the number one quarterback in the draft for me.
Chris Sims has said a lot of stupid stuff over the years, so when he released his 2021 draft quarterback rankings, there were quite a few people shaking their heads, and that's putting it mildly. His top 6 quarterbacks were in this order. Number 1, Zach Wilson, then Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, Kellen Mond, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance. Now, if you've been reading up on the draft, you'd know, well, first off, Lawrence has been the consensus number 1 pick for multiple years now. Like, anyone who doesn't have him as their number 1 is a massive exception. Mac Jones is generally outside the top 4, and just about everyone else has Kellen Mond outside the first round, and certainly below Justin Fields and Trey Lance. So definitely some shockers here, and with the world of hot take artists that we live in, you'd probably just assume that Sims is either trying to make headlines, or maybe you just think he's an idiot. Now here's the thing. Well, for one, predicting the draft is an absolute crapshoot. There are plenty of people who have never even watched Zach Wilson or Trey Lance play who will call anyone stupid if they don't have them ranked based off what they read in ESPN's last mock draft. So let's not act like we know with certainty exactly how these players' careers are going to play out. Still, sometimes there is consensus for a reason. When a player like Peyton Manning or John Elway looked so good in college and had the right characteristics to transfer over to the pros, there was a reason most people believed they could be future Hall of Famers before they even stepped onto an NFL field. Trevor Lawrence is getting that same type of love. Going against the grain with that number 1 pick is a big deal. But Sims said he was blown away by what he saw on tape with Wilson, and his history of quarterback rankings are probably going to surprise you. They started in 2018, a year where most people had Sam Darnold as their number 1. Of course, Baker Mayfield ended up going first, and Darnold was the second QB off the board. I should also mention most analysts were high on Josh Rosen, and Josh Allen as well as Lamar Jackson were kinda love-or-hate players. Sims' rankings back then drew the same exact reaction as they did today. There were plenty of angry tweets and comments fired at him for having such a stupid ranking. And right off the bat, he was lower on Josh Rosen than most, putting him at number 5. And if you're wondering, there really isn't anyone relevant after the top 5, so putting Rosen here makes sense. We're talking Mason Rudolph, Kyle Lauletta, Luke Falk. Everyone has been more or less a career backup. At number 4, he had Sam Darnold, and once again, he nailed it. There were plenty of people with Darnold over Jackson, Allen, and Mayfield, but with the production so far in their careers, Darnold fits in perfectly at number 4. Of course, there's always a disclaimer with Darnold having been forced to play for the Jets his whole career, so that's unfortunate, but still, he's number 4. Next up, he's got Mayfield, which also makes sense so far with the 2 guys above him having either won an MVP or made a conference championship game. Mayfield had his best year yet, and that has certainly separated him from Darnold. Finally, Sims had Josh Allen at number 2 and Lamar Jackson at number 1. Obviously, people are going to be in disagreement with these two. Last year, they would have ranked Jackson 1, but this year they probably would have flipped them. No matter what, this was an incredibly accurate prediction that went against pretty much what everyone else was saying. This was Sims' Mona Lisa. He painted a near-perfect picture of how these players were going to operate in the NFL. In 2019, this class turned out to be pretty lackluster. Kyler Murray was the clear number 1. After that, Dwayne Haskins was the usual second choice. It got pretty varied after that with Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and others. Sims agreed with the majority this time with Murray at 1, and so far that prediction is obviously looking good. After that, he went with Lock, then Haskins, which proved to be true. His biggest blunder was ranking Jones all the way back at 6. Now, Danny Dimes hasn't set the league on fire by any means, but he certainly had a better career than just about everyone there except Murray. In 2020, Sims was certainly lower on Tua Tagovailoa than most. Obviously, Tua was coming off a major surgery and had some bumps in the road as a rookie. I guess that looks good for Sims' rankings, but there's still plenty of time for Tua and all these quarterbacks to improve. Because understandably, they've only had 1 year in the league with a bunch of different circumstances. If I were to take you back a year ago, saying Love over Tua would have sounded pretty crazy. Obviously, we can't evaluate this one at all, with Love sitting behind Aaron Rodgers this year. Next, Sims hit another home run with him going high on Justin Herbert. There were so many people calling Herbert a first-round bust, so it's important to give credit where credit is due. He had Herbert as his number 2 quarterback, and he won Rookie of the Year. At number 1, Sims agreed with the Bengals and pretty much everyone else that Joe Burrow was the best prospect. Now, I will also mention that Jalen Hurts didn't even make his top 5. He had Jacob Eason over him. So if Hurts can turn things around in Philly, then that'll obviously mark a big stain on Sims' crystal ball. But in the early stages of these guys' careers, for the most part, Sims looks pretty good. Going back to this year now, if someone like Justin Fields, who at times looked like he could be the best player in this draft, yes, I'm talking about that insane Sugar Bowl, if Fields can turn out like that in the NFL, then Sims is going to end up looking like every other draft analyst out there where, hey, you may know more than the average football fan, but in the end, it's just a crapshoot. So far during Sims' short time doing these rankings, he has hit more often than any analyst I've ever seen. I mean, based off the past couple years, you could say GMs should start consulting with him about quarterback prospects. As we wrap things up, I hope this video can be a reminder that just because there's some consensus on the way things will play out, nothing is a certainty. And even though I've spent almost this entire video talking about how good of an analyst he is, I gotta say, outside of his QB draft projections, he says a lot of wild stuff that are massive swings and misses. So obviously don't take his word as gospel, but I just figured before we judge his rankings this year that are once again plenty different than everyone else's, it might be a good idea to look at his history, which is quite impressive. So is Chris Sims an idiot? Well, not when it comes to drafting a quarterback.
I have a great idea for the next video. Here it is.